We can't do too much joking around because this is a serious show. You know that?
Is it though, really? It's a little bit. So I pretty much just read an article on Macworld saying that iPads are bending.
Yes, I've heard about this. I got the tweets, the people, they reached out. You may or may not know the whole bending of Apple products, Bendgate. People want me to weigh in. A lot of people requesting that I talk about this.
Yeah, it's a touchy subject. Do you have any thoughts?
Well, no one wants bent anything.
No.
I don't know if that's true. I mean, maybe there's some things that it always comes back to this conversation of like, how big of a deal is it? Is it catastrophic? How many devices does it affect? It's the same kind of conversation that happened back in the day when the original iPhone bent, the iPhone 6. The thing I like to talk about from this end of the spectrum, I'm not a brand, I am not Apple. So I'm always gonna advocate for the people. If you are someone who's affected by this, I think you have a point. It should be fixed. It's not an ideal scenario. And in the case of the original iPhone that bent, Apple went back to the drawing board and switched their materials because they knew something was wrong, even though they didn't necessarily admit to it publicly. Can they do that in this case? I don't actually know the makeup of the alloy being used in the iPad. What I do know is that it's impossibly slim. Like, that thing is crazy thin. Is mine bent? I don't think so. Maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, you would probably have to use like a level.
Yeah, you'd probably have to use a level. How durable is anything that's this thin? Like, of course, there's a common sense component, and that's always what the Apple fans get angry about. They're like, who's bending? You're bending. Why are you bending your stuff? You're just not taking care of it, kind of thing. What I've been reading online is the biggest culprit to these types of bends in the case of the iPad is putting it in a backpack. So some individuals apparently they put the devices into a backpack, and the textbooks and other weight that you would typically have in a backpack was leaning up against it, and then they end up with a bent iPad. That's a regular use case scenario. You should be able to do that without having a bent iPad. I don't know about you. Would you agree?
Yeah, I can imagine, being late for class or something, and then you're just stuffing textbooks and iPads in your bag. It's pretty normal. But the fact that they, are bending just like that, it
doesn't make you feel comfy with your new product, your new $1,000 product. Absolutely not. The other point to make is I was reading some of the responses, some of the follow-up from Apple. It's a bit confusing because I know The Verge reported that they had an official Apple response, but then Apple was like, that's not our official response. Anyhow, there was this guy, an engineer or whoever he was responding to some email requests regarding the bending from customers, and he stated that this device is designed to their specification. If it's a little bit bent, no big deal, keep using it. It's a manufacturing thing. It'll stay as bent as it is. Now that's weird. That response is probably more weird than the actual bending, because here you have the biggest consumer electronics company coming out and saying, a little bit of a bend, no big deal, even if it's out of the box when you buy it. That's unusual.
Yeah, I mean, in their unofficial statement saying, these iPads are either A, not bent, or B, supposed to be bent.
Yeah, by design. Part of the cooling process. It's hard to figure out where to land on it. Of course, when I made that original video, it's still the most popular video that I posted. I think it has 70 million views on it. A follow-up to that story that many people didn't necessarily catch up on was the fact that further problems on the iPhone 6, this touch disease problem that crept up later, was a consequence of these slight bends. So for people who were thinking that it was strictly aesthetic at the time, it went on to have this further issue with these phantom touches taking place on the display because it screwed up the digitizer when it had that slight bend in it.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen for like a year or two afterwards. So people that thought they were safe out of the woodwork went on to acquire different problems eventually from that issue. And Apple went on to replace many devices under a repair program because of said touch disease. In the case of the iPad, it might not even be a thing where you realize the extent of the damage immediately, but there may be other issues that creep up because of these slight bends in the frame over time that might not be strictly aesthetic. But like a lot of these things that generate a ton of hype, and as you know, new Apple product comes out,
it's a whole experience.
It's a whole thing, because Apple's already doing a good job of telling you why you need it. So you're trying to find out, well, okay, that's cool, but maybe why not? Show me the why nots. And that's what people depend on this type of content for. So when I saw the video online where the iPad was bent in half really easily, of course I'm not bending things anymore. You can attest to that.
Yeah.
I moved on. Look, take a look around. I moved on. But I think we're at a point now where these devices are shrinking down so much that it's kind of inevitable. They're not going to be as tough because we demand thinness. We demand
lightweight,
thin, powerful, beautiful. We want it all. And we never want to pay the price with a bent anything.
Yeah. But with this iPad, I mean, it's $800.
It's expensive.
The problem is that a lot of people are seeing iPads that are bent when they just first open it.
Yeah. I mean, out of the box, it's no fun. That part of the experience and relationship that you have with a product is so important. So it's obviously no fun.
Especially an Apple product. Fresh box, sleek design, and so on. Yeah.
I'm actually going to be a little bit optimistic on this one. I know right now some people are having issues getting their units replaced. I think Apple's going to do the right thing. I think if that's your iPad, the one in that picture, I think they're probably going to replace it for you. I think they should. Apple, if you're watching, just replace the bent ones.
Yeah, at least have some sort of unofficial replacement program.
Do something. Do something about it, because that's no fun. That's not a happy customer, obviously. And your Apple, you have a few bucks lying around.
There you go.
Huh? You know, offshore cash, and possibly go back to the drawing board like they did with the iPhone 6. Maybe change some materials, put some reinforcements, and hopefully we get a better product. That's the main thing. That's the main point with these types of topics. It's like you're not just talking about it for strictly the purpose of hype. That's helpful. Of course, you want people to watch the content that you make and the stories that you write, but also because uncovering things like this actually leads to further development and improvement of physical products, the ones that end up in your pocket, like happened with the 6S as a response to the iPhone 6. So it's all good. Yeah. If you like Apple, it's good. If you don't like Apple, it's good. It's good to have this kind of stuff out in the open, better iPads in the future. Regardless of the bending and stuff and the fact that it didn't replace a laptop for me, it's still an incredible achievement, this product, in the sense of how powerful it is, how wonderful the screen is in a form factor like this.
They did strive for a good iPad, and I think that's what they did here. You know, minus the bending, I don't think there's any other issues with it.
Right.
And I think a lot of people would use this. Maybe the price, yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. But, you know, if you're a college student and, you know, it's either that or the laptop, maybe that's a good option.
Does it in any way stop you from recommending this device, possibly to a loved one, a family member, a friend?
I would totally recommend it for anyone who doesn't want to use a laptop. I think that's the best tablet that's out there right now.
But let's be clear, for $1,000, you're gonna tell people to get a laptop still. I know I am.
Sure.
It's a lot of money for a tablet, for an iPad.
Yeah, but it's the best tablet, I would have to say.
I'll say the same.
For sure.
How does this end, this show?